Hello everyone, welcome to TechTeach with Ebou. If you're new here, we specialize in helping you master web development technologies. Today we're tackling something super exciting. We're building a blogging platform using MDX files. That means you'll be able to create blogs with the simplicity of Markdown, but with the power of React components and Next.js. If you've ever wanted to add interactive chat, widgets, or any custom UI right into your blogs or videos that you host on YouTube or Vimeo, then this tutorial is for you. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button and let's start blogging the modern way. This tutorial here is the second part of a series that I'm building an e-learning platform end to end. This part of the series we're doing front end, but eventually we'll move and do back end as well. So the first part of this series is where I built this beautiful landing page. As you can see on the demo here, is the code for that is hosted on GitHub right here. So I'll put the link in the description below. If you're new and you just want to start here, feel free to just clone this repo. If you don't want to go to the tutorial of building the landing page, if you're interested, go on that tutorial of building the landing page. Otherwise, just clone this project and then we're good to go. So going back to our e-learning platform, what we are building today is just a blog. But let's do the demo and dive right straight in. So here I'll click on this blog tab. So we navigate here the blogs that we're going to support. They're all markdown files and they're hosted on GitHub. So there's going to be two parts of the tutorial. The first part will dive right into using local files where you can just store your markdown files locally. The second part of the tutorial, or I will just create, there's going to be another chapter where we'll be diving into the remote files. So in the remote files, we're hosting the remote files on GitHub. This way, once you deploy your application, you don't have to redeploy everything. Just check in your markdown files into the GitHub branch, and that's it. You're good to go. So a little bit demo about it. For the markdown file, I have this filtering that allows someone, once they just get in here, they can search for whatever. So if I put file, we are filtering based on the text file. So if I remove it and then put text, we are going to filter based on text. So yeah, and we also have this other filter in here that allows you, let's say you are supporting writing markdown files in multiple frameworks. Let's say you write blocks, but you have your blocks for Next.js. You also write blocks for Spring Boot. It's just a way of filtering out. Yeah. So here's the first part. The second part, let's click into it and then we dive right straight in. So let me expand this. This allows you to, as you can see, we already embed a YouTube video and then the video is like right inside here that we can play, expand it to whatever that we want inside this video here. So this video is hosted on YouTube, is the part one of this series where I build the landing page. Scroll down here, there are a few more things that we host. You can see the code is beautifully color coded. We'll also talk about the plugins that we use, how you can customize this plugin as well. Yeah, that's the demo. So without wasting more time, let's dive straight into coding. So as I mentioned, that there's a first part of this series where we build this landing page, this beautiful landing page. So here is the nav component, but we did not include the link that allows us. So here is the demo project, and here is the project that you'll be building with me today. If I click on block, you see these links are not interactive. So one way that we can use the link component from Next.js. So with this link component, what we can do, we can just give it a path. So let me import this. Either you can put command period or control period if you're on Windows, and you import it from Next link. Otherwise, you can just come here and just type import link from Next link directly. One of the things that are required is href. So href is required, and here we have a path that we define in the so that path is the one that will pass here, right? Yeah. So these should capture. There's still some error. It says missing key, right? So instead of having the key here now, we are bringing the key to the link. There you go. So problem solved. But before that, we did not create the routes for this. Some of you guys can remember from the previous tutorial, we did not create the routes, and we have all these different routes. So we are going to use something called route group. So route group allows us to group all the routes to make sure, because one thing that is common in between all these routes is they share this nav bar. This is not something that I want to render in every single component. So one way of handling it is via route group. So we'll create a folder, and then this folder that we'll create, just if you're new, let me just take a step back and explain. In the new app directory, if you create any folder, that folder becomes a path if you have page.tsx inside it. So if you don't want that folder to become a path right away, there's something called route groups that you can Google it on Next.js documentation and then take a look. So we're creating one route group here called courses route, which is a route group, and then within this courses route, the first route that we'll have here is we have home as the landing page. So we'll create dashboard, courses, blog, and contact. So for our focus today is just blog. So we'll just create the route group for blog. If we want to have another route, we need to create a folder inside here that we'll call blog or blogs, depends. So one way of creating, if you're on VS Code, there's a shortcut here of creating a file that allows you to create a folder and then create a file inside. Or you can click here, create a folder, then create a file inside. So we're using the shortcut here. We're creating a folder called blocks, and inside these blocks, we are creating page.tsx. So in this case, it created this page.tsx. So let's do SFC. I'm using not a plugin, but an extension from VS Code that just allows me to write that and it will generate the code. So to test that this blocks route is working, let's have a div. Within this div, let's have an h1 here. Inside the h1, let's call it blocks. Save. But before that, let's check the constants that we defined. So here is where I just defined the routes within this constant here, and I'm just looping through it. So here is where I define the route. So you can see I give them the path. This is the path that I destructured right there, and then we're looping through. So here the path here is courses. In our case, the path here is blocks. So if I click on this block, it should navigate to blocks. But before that, let me make sure that the application is running. Let me open up my terminal and see, yes, I'm not running the application. So let's run yandef. If you are new here and you clone the project, dive right inside and then just run yandef. It should be good to go. I'm running on 3001. It's because I have the demo project that is running on 3000. So yours will probably start on 3000. Just visit localhost 3000 and you should be good to go. So while that is fetching, let's check if there's anything else that we're missing. Here we have the pages. We are not rendering anything else. I think that should be good. So we have this ready. Yes, as you can see, we have some errors here, but we'll come back to it and see what hydration failed, because the initial UI that was rendered li. Yes, so we'll come back to that. We'll come back to the hydration issue. Let me click on blocks. If I click on blocks now, Next.js is going to generate that block component. There you go. Now we have this block component. But something else that, if you guys notice, the blocks is missing the navigation bar. We do not have the navigation bar. So we do need to create the navigation bar. And as part of the group routes or the route groups, we can create a layout that is not related to any one of. So as you can see, let me see if this is created correct. Yes. So we can create a layout at the root here. When I say root is within courses route. So I can create layout.tsx. So it needs to be exactly layout.tsx. There are other ones that are needed. Yes, we'll come back to that. So I'm just trying to explain a few things. There are other things that that Next.js requires, but we can put them on Next.js. We'll call them as part of the render tree. One of them is layout. There is loading. There is error. During the demo, I don't know if you guys catch it, but there is a loading schema that we have. That loading schema is, if we create a file loading.tsx, then Next.js will call that file. So let's create the layout. Something else that I want to be shared among them is the navigation bar. So we definitely need to have that navigation bar somewhere around there, and so that if we create other routes, for example, we are going to have a route called contacts, we're going to have a route called dashboard. We want these routes to share the same files. Now let's dive in and then create the layout. So for the layout, it's nothing other than a React component. This React component just renders. So let me, so I'll just bring this right in. It's nothing complicated, but in the interest of time, I'm not going to write this code, but it's very easy. I'll just explain whatever that is here. So the layout just have a children, and the children that it takes is react.node. That children, we have navbar here because I want the navbar to be shared. This children is any of these. So if this blocks, if page.tsx returns whatever children that it returns, it will be rendered right inside here. If we have another one called contacts, for example, so within this courses, I'll create another called contacts, for example, and within contacts, I will create a page.tsx. So which is page.tsx, and I'll just do sfc, then I'll call this contacts. I'll just open a React fragment and then just write contacts here. So what is happening is all these, yes, because I did not save this layout here. So once I save this layout here, then this error should go away, because once you have a layout, it's expecting the layout to have something. As you can see, we now have the logo, and then we have the navigation bar. We also have the logo. So something else that we can do is the logo that we just created, we should give it some height so that it takes up this height. But since we are working, we will fix that as we go. If I go to contacts, CONTACTS, you will see that within contacts, they will share the same navigation bar, and it will share the same footer. I think this is really smart from Next.js because it's going to prevent a lot of re-rendering that are going to happen. So if the navigation bar doesn't change, it's not going to re-render. Yeah, so without, I think now that we have these guys ready, so yeah, let's dive straight into the topic of today, which is content layout, which is like blogging using content layout. So what is content layout? Content layout, it's basically somewhere in the middle, in between your data and Next.js. So what it does is you can write any file that ends in MD or MDX, and these files are markdown files. So what ContentLayer does, it passes those files for you on the server. Nothing happens on the client. It passes those files for you on the server, generate the data that you give it. So it's so beautiful. Once we dive into ContentLayer and use it both locally and remote, you guys will see the beauty that ContentLayer comes with. So yeah, let's dive straight in. So the first step is just to install ContentLayer, because we do need ContentLayer. It's one of the dependencies that we're going to use. There are other options. I think it's called remote MDX. So if we go onto the Next.js documentation, they have other options, but based on my research, ContentLayer turns out to be the best one in terms of architecture, infrastructure, on how they handle this whole passing of the MDX files, how they cast those MDX files to make sure that they are not happen. They're also to make how they cast those files to make sure that they are not regenerated every single time. They also have another beautiful thing that they have is auto reload. If you're testing, you put your MDX file, you save, you have auto reload by default. So this brings this beautiful developer experience. So yeah, we need two packages, which is ContentLayer, and we also need ContentLayer Next ContentLayer, which is just the wrapper around ContentLayer for Next. So I'll stop this and I'll paste this command on my terminal, which says npm install ContentLayer dash next ContentLayer. So if you're on yarn, you can say yarn add ContentLayer space next ContentLayer. So these are the two, is the ContentLayer, and next ContentLayer is just the the wrapper around content layer so that it can work with Next.js. So I'll hit enter and it will install that. Once that is installed, then we need to wrap it. So let me see the get started. Maybe they will talk about it in the get started. So here they're talking about creating a new project. We already have a new project. This is what they are running. So you can, if you decide to create a new project for the blogging application, then you need to create date FSN. I do not need date FSN because I'm using SAT-CN, and SAT-CN comes with, they already pre-installed date FSN. So once we have that ready, we'll return back to our Next.js configuration. So I'll do that. Where is our next config? Right here. So within next config, since we want this guy, I mistakenly pressed this, but since we want the entire next configuration to wrap, so that at build time, when Next.js is building, content layer will generate the doc. So the first thing to do is just to import this content layer into our next config file. We import that content layer, and these are ones that if you have anything else within your Next.js configuration, that's fine. The only thing to do is just to wrap it. Change here and change it with content layer, which looks like a high order function, which just wraps, takes in this function, and then produce its own output. So this is the only thing that we need to do, and the rest will be handled by Next.js at build time. Once we build, it will run the content layer and generate the files that we need. Just add a semicolon here. So content layer, because we are working with TypeScript, they want us to change some configurations within our TypeScript. If you are not on TypeScript and you're working on JS, the project is using JSX, not TSX for your file names, or JS, not TS, then you don't need to do this part. But if you're on TypeScript, I highly recommend it, is let's go to our TS config. So within our TS config, we need to update the path so that TypeScript will know that we have a new path. In this case, just copy this directly. I will include the link of content layer in the description. So I added here content layer.generated, and this is the file. We will dive deeper into the content layer, whatever that is generated here. And the next thing is just to include the types, so that TypeScript will know that this type exists. So I will save this and come here to the include directory, copy here directly this content layer /generated, come right in here, comma, paste it in here. So I think that's the only thing that we need to do for our TypeScript configuration, and I think we should be good to go. This is also suggested that we should add content layer to get ignored, because whatever that is generated at build time. So we do not need to define anything else, or we do not need to check that code into GitHub. So the next part is just defining content layer and type. So let's dive straight into our configuration and then do it from there, since the type that they have might be different from the type that we have. Yeah, so we need to create a file called ContentLayer.config.ts or .js, depending on however that you want. So it needs to be on the root directory. You come to the root directory here where you have the TS config, you have the Tailwind config. Create a file that is called ContentLayer. ContentLayer.config.js. So I'll use JS for this. So I'll use ContentLayer.config.js. So this is going to be a huge part of our coding, because most of whatever that we're defining that content layer need to use will come straight from this content layer. So yeah, the first thing to do is let's import the types here from, let's copy this, paste it here. The next part is to define a type. So in our case, we have our own type that way. So we're just going to copy this and then just modify this to suit our need. And then the last part is the computed fields. We'll come back to all these computed fields. For now is I'll dive deeper into these computed fields and what they mean. So the last part is just exporting default. So what content layer is expecting here is we are passing a local file. So let's go into this. I'm not using MD, so I'm going to change this into MDX. And I guess the question is, what is the difference between MD and MDX? So MDX, it's a new that is built on top of MD. It allows us to write React components. You can write a React component for video, for example, and just render that component straight into an MDX file, then that will be outputted as part of your blog. So isn't that amazing? That is just so beautiful. And that's the difference between MD and MDX. Another thing that we are going to add here is content type. So we'll add a content type and say that our content type is MDX right here. So looking at the fields here, I'm not going to dive deeper into these fields. I will first explain the example of the content, the markdown that we have, and how those markdowns relate directly to the fields that you're going to put in here. So the first step is, I'm just going to, if you go to this GitHub here, there is a folder called blocks, right? I also put the link of this in the description as well. So there's a folder called blocks. Within this block, this is an MD file. Notice how I have these 3 dashes here and then the other 3 dashes here. Whatever that we put right in here, the title, the post, type of post, description, who is the author and when is it authored, we can come straight in here and then specify those as fields and specify if they are required or not. So if we mark them as required and we do not pass it down, then it will fail. And here, what are the things that we have here? Looking at this, we have title. So let me minimize this. Let me close that. So we have title here. We have type, we have description, we have author, we have date. So instead of, yes, we do have a date. Required, yes. You can also put it as false, depends. But in my case, I just mark them as required. Anything else that you need can also come right in here. For example, if you need tags, because some blogs do have tags, you can just come and add tags here and then just mark it here as required. So what else can we get other than this date and tag? I'm just duplicating this with Command, Alt, and then the down key. Just duplicating them as much as I can. I have title, and the next one that I have is description. Description, and after description there's author. It's all of type string, so I do not need to change the type. Date. Yeah, I think these are the only things that I need. So I'll just remove this one that is duplicated. So I have 4 fields. Here I passed 5 of them, but because here I'm telling content type that this is the type that I defined. So whatever type that I'm defining here, it is post. You can name it anything you want. You can name this type as blog, but just give it that name here and you specify that type here. You can have multiple types that you define for your blog. Let's say your blog can be as diverse as possible. Just come define the type here, specify what type that you want, so that when ContentLayer is passing your file, they will know that you're referring to this specific type. So in our case, computed fields, we'll come back to it. We don't need computed fields for now. I'm just going to mark it as, I'm just going to comment that out. And the last part here is the content directory. Content directory is very important. It tells ContentLayer where to go and look for those files. So not sure if I explained this, but I'm just telling ContentLayer that any folder, go inside any folder. Within that folder, if there's anything, this is just a wildcard. That means match anything. If it ends with .mdx, then you include that as part of the file pattern. So content directory is the content is the place where we have our content that we want to pass. In this case, it is called post. We do not have any content in the root layer that is called post. So we can create a new folder here called post. So within this post, we can create something. Let's say local.mdx. So in this case, I created an MDX file within post. You can just copy whatever that is on GitHub here, or if you have another markdown file that is completely different, feel free to copy that markdown file as well, and then just paste the content right in. So I'll copy here and paste it, and I'll save this. So yeah, let's return back to our content layer. The reason why we're spending a lot of time in the content layer, because after we're done configuring the content layer, then that is it. For the bulk of the work, it's already done. It's already handled by content layer behind the scenes. So let's do this. If I save and I show you guys the terminal, I did not run, but if I run and if everything is okay, if I save this file, content layer should tell me if anything is generated or not. So if I click on save, we'll see content layer will now tell me, oh, 1 or 2 files are generated, or 3 files are generated, or there was a problem generated. Oh yes, here is the magic. Let me just, so this will be visible. I don't know if you guys can see, but it says generated 1 document. 1 document, yes, because we only have 1 document inside post. That's why it says generated 1 document. Where does the generated content go? Here is where the generated content go. We go to this folder called .ContentLayer. Inside .ContentLayer, that's .generated. So we have this post. There is this index.json. Here it shows you whatever that is. You can see it already passed that information. Got the title for you. Get the description for you, the author, the description, and so on. So yeah, this is just so beautiful. And one way of using this is just to import all posts that is exposed from here. It exposed something called all posts. Within this all posts, we can just have all the posts on our front end and then just start using the post anyhow that we want. So we know that a content is being generated. How do we know what is generated? Let's dive and test what's generated. So let's go back to our blog. Within our blog page.tsx, I did mention that it will expose it from all posts. Let's come here and then import, in this case, importing all posts from /.ContentLayer/generated. So within here, I will import all posts. So right now we have just one, so it's just going to print 1. And to know if this is working, let me just declare a constant here that I'll call post, and I'll just get the first element from all posts. We will handle this appropriately, so we'll handle errors. Right now it's just for testing. So let me do something like post.title, for example. Let me duplicate this and do post.author. So let me save that and we return back to our application. Yes, it's running. So let me do that. We go into blocks. We'll fix this issue where if there is no content, it doesn't go. At some point, we'll have to add I need to reload this because. Yeah, so I reloaded that. Let's wait for these guys to load and we'll see that we will have the component ready. We'll come back to you, whatever that is yelling at me. Yeah, see what is happening. We have the installation and we also have Ebou. What is the, we are having a command here. It shouldn't be here. Let's return back to our local.mdx. If you're already there, you go here. That is the mistake. But the beautiful part is see what is going to happen. As I reload and save this file here, isn't that beautiful? The auto reload just kicks in and we don't have to do anything. The content layer is just doing the work behind the scene. I love the work that the team have put into this. Yeah. So question is now, I'm pretty sure some of you guys are having questions. How do we render the remaining part of this? Because I only said content layer title, no sorry, post.title, post.author, we have them, but how do we render the remaining part of this? So here is where the component of content layer now comes into play. Component of this content layer that comes into play is we are going to create a new component within our components folder. So go into courses file, not app. Inside components, we will create an MDX component. This component will be used to render MDX. So it's very simple. Let me do SFC. We'll have the MDX. So we'll just call the component MDX. So within MDX, we are going to take in a prop. So for now, let me define an interface for the since we're using TypeScript, would say MDX props. Within MDX props, we're taking in a code which is a string. We'll go, oh, guys, don't worry. I'll explain what this code is. If we look at the generated file, you'll see that code is included. So not sure if I did go through you guys whatever that was generated to see the code inside post here. Click. So inside body there is raw. If we scroll all the way, there should be code somewhere. So here is the code here, and that code is a string, and it's the one that is rendered in the component. So let me close this, and that is what we are passing here as props. So let me just pass in the type here, which is a React functional component, and we are taking an MDX props. So let me minimize this so you guys can see, so you guys can have a better view. Amazing. Now what I'm doing is I'm just going to destructure here the code that we just passed in here, and we'll use the code to do the rest. So there is a we are going to import from Next ContentLayer hook. They have a hook that is called use MDX component. You pass in a code and it returns an MDX component for you. So I will import, just bring in the import here in the interest of time. So I'll just paste this import here. We are importing from Next ContentLayer. At the beginning of the tutorial, these are the two ones that we install. We install Next ContentLayer and ContentLayer. So that Next ContentLayer is the hook that comes out of it. We just need to pass in the code and it will return a React component. In this case, if I say use MDX code, it returns a React component. The React component that it returns is what we are going to render inside here, and this will handle the bulk of the work. There's another part to this which I'm going to explain. Is they allow us to write our own pre-built component. In the introduction, I mentioned that I have a video there for YouTube, a YouTube video. Now for that YouTube video, there is something that we can pass in here called components. In that components, so I'm just going to define in an object here. That object is just called components, and within these components we're going to define all the components that that we need. So the first one that we want to override is just the image that is coming from Next.js, so we can use image directly. So I'll just import image, and then the props from Next. The next step is just to include that here as part of the components. One of the props that this need is components, and we'll just pass in the components that we create. So let's say we have another div that we create. Let's say we created another component that is called video. In that case, we'll just come here, put comma, and then just pass in the new component that we created. In this way, we will go to our MDX file and then just call the component right there. So we do not need this for now. We'll come back to this for sure because we have some other custom components that we created. So we'll include that component here. Seems like the work that was needed here is done. So since we have this component, let's take this component back to our block. So which is why is our block that we created. So let me do it will take me to this page.tsx. Here the next thing that I will render is the component that we just created, and this component would now allow us. Let me do the import. So I'm doing command period. It's going to be control period on Windows. It seems like it cannot find this. Let me do space and then do it again. Oh yes, I am going to do the import. I'll do the import myself. So it says import components from /. Oops, how did I forget that? From /components / MDX component that we just created. So it requires, I think it's a default import, so we don't need that because I exported it as default. So one of the things that it requires is the code. So in this case, the code is coming from my post. I'll say post. If you guys remember, it was inside body code. So we do have this now. That's the bulk part of what we need. So I would say that the whole work that we needed to render markdown. Amazing. We have it. Here is our markdown render. That whatever markdown that we created, it is now rendered here. There's no styling, guys, don't worry. We're going to style this markdown with the help of Tailwind CSS. So it's not styled, we do not have anything here, as you can see. Yeah, but the good thing is we have every single part of our markdown rendered. So what is next is we now need to style this markdown component. But before styling the markdown component, we can add some more components that we are going to need. In this case, it's a video component because we do need a video component to show videos. So let's go back to where our MDX component is located inside. Let me minimize that. Minimize the come back to component. Inside component, I'll create video.tsx. So we'll use this to show our video, which is video.tsx. So within this video.tsx, like I said, for the interest of time, the code is very simple. I'm just gonna paste it right in here, then we can dive straight inside. So within this, I'm defining the host right now. The ones that I'm supporting, it's YouTube and Vimeo. So yeah, if you're interested in YouTube, you can just click on YouTube. If you're interested in video, you can pass in the type for the host as Vimeo or YouTube. So we're taking two things as props, which is the video host, which is one of these. It's either YouTube or Vimeo. If you have other ones that you're supporting, just put it here and then come and modify this method here. So first thing I'm doing, I'm checking if the video host is YouTube, then I'll pass in that because that is the embed for YouTube. And here is the aka player for Vimeo. And whatever that I'm doing, I'm requesting an ID. So you can, once we're testing this, you guys will see that I'll pass an ID onto it. And here the title is YouTube video play. It shouldn't be. We can modify, we can also do, we can conditionally check and then also give it a title as well. So it's I wouldn't call it a bug, but yeah, you guys can just change this. Just do a conditional check. If video host is YouTube, leave it as YouTube. Otherwise, say Vimeo video play. The rest is just if you copy from YouTube, like if you go to YouTube video share, whatever this is coming from there. So just have it straight inside. It's nothing out of the extraordinary for this. And I will save it. I will come back to my MDX file. Within my MDX file, I will just pass in this video that we just created. And the video is coming from /video. That's everything that we need. So if we have a video, we will just pass in, we'll just put the React component of video inside the MDX file and we should be good to go. So within this video, there's something, I don't know if you guys noticed, I'm using Tailwind styles for aspect ratio. So it means we need to install the styles from Tailwind. So Tailwind, there's Tailwind CSS / aspect ratio. Let me do this. Tailwind CSS aspect ratio. So there's Tailwind CSS aspect ratio. We're going to use the aspect ratio for the video, so it's going to be very helpful. Do they have a command here to install it? No, let me go to their GitHub. Maybe they'll have it probably on the npm page. Right here. So we just have this command that we need to run and it will just install it. So first thing, go back to your terminal, stop the terminal from running, run Tailwind install. So before you hit enter, that's another one that we need to install as well, and it's also coming from Tailwind, which is the typography. So I've mentioned, if I go back to the demo, I've mentioned that we will need to style this separate. So Tailwind is, they do have typography that can help us to style anything that is rendered directly on the DOM. So in this case, I forgot to type Tailwind CSS, Tailwind CSS. So this is the typography that we need to install. It is also coming from Tailwind. So install it as well. Just do it, put a space. Let's just install both of them together. Hit enter. This will install both typography and the aspect ratio. So now that we have both Tailwind and aspect ratio and the typography, if we want to check if our typography is working, I'll go back to our page here. Let's go back to our component here, because the beauty part is once we install that from Tailwind, we already have the bulk. Where are we rendering this once again? It's on the courses blocks.tsx. So Here's where we're rendering. One thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to wrap this in an article instead, using the article tag for accessibility and SEO. And here I will give it a class name, a tailwind class name of. So if we go back to the typography, you can see that the basic usage is just passing the post class and it will have effect. So to test that, I'm just going to pass in PROSC, which is the post class, come back to our page and see if anything will change. So let's see, we wait. All right. So once we already install the configuration, the aspect ratio, we now need to go to our Tailwind configuration to just update we need to go to our Tailwind config. So within the Tailwind config, we need to add these new plugins that we have. So if I go back to Tailwind here, after the installation, they ask us to add a plugin. So we just need to go to our Tailwind configuration and then just add this plugin right now. So in this case, it's two of them. We added aspect ratio. We just come to our Tailwind configuration. Here is the plugin section. It's an array. We need to add two more here. Let me enter here. So put comma here and then let's add the two more. So in this case, these are just the ones that we just added, which is Tailwind CSS dash aspect ratio. Oops. And Tailwind CSS typography. So I will just save this and Tailwind should be good to go. So running PTO confarmer. Let's go back to our application and see if we are going to notice any difference. There you go. Beautiful. Now we have styling, but the styling that we have, it's okay. Everything is styled now. The installation, which is the title, the author is styled, the system requirements, everything is styled, but it is not as per what we want. So we are going to do additional configuration. The beautiful part is the Tailwind typography it is very extendable in the sense that we can extend the typography class and just do whatever that we want with that typographic class. In this case, we want the 5 classes that Tailwind comes with. It just did not blend with my background at all. So I have this background which I want to maintain across the entire application. So the typography comes with 5 classes, I think by default. Yes, it comes with these 5 classes. It comes with gray, slate, zinc, neutral, and stone. But none of them work for my case. And then I had to do additional work to extend it. So Tailwind has a section here where it talks about how you can extend it. So I make use of this configuration and then extended the Tailwind configuration. So there are a few things that I added in the Tailwind configuration. One of them is, since we're still here, I have these colors. I'm going to maintain that. I'm going to add a new color that I'm going to use. In this case, it's just for my links, and I call them block code. So it will be used for my block code. Inside your Tailwind configuration, there's themes. Inside theme, there's an object called extend. Inside extend colors. So we're extending the Tailwind colors, and you can add block code inside. Is there any other color that we're extending? No. So the next thing that we need to do is to update the configuration. So if you come back here, as you can see within the extend, we can just put typography here and then create a new typography that we want. In our case, I'm going to create a new typography called block, so that we will apply block to the style. So and that will match really well. That will blend really well. So inside there's colors. I'm going to collapse colors, go all the way to so after screens, then I'll just paste this here. So I'll explain this and what it means. So these are the colors that I am extending specifically. If you need anything else that is not part of this, you can just return back to and see the ones that they support. For example, if you want to change bullets, you can just come here, put bullets, and change it. For my case, these are the only ones that I needed to change so that it can work well with my website. So yeah, as you can see, this is the new color that I added. So I want my code to be colored that way. I modified the HR, the bold, the links, the code, the text, and so on. So I will save this. Once I save this, we will now go back, because I call this block. We will go back to block page.tsx. Instead of applying slate, I will apply block, which is just the one that I extended and created now. So Tailwind, you might want to, is this the one? Are we having it running? Yes. So let me restart this. Let's restart this because sometimes changing the Tailwind configuration requires. Let's restart and see what we get. So it's running at 3001. Let me reload that and see. So since it is changed to Slate, I expect to have it to work exactly like, so it can blend with my background, the background that I have for my website. So while we wait for that to load, there is an error on the Tailwind configuration. Yes, we will type this later. So it needs saying that team need to type. Look for the type for Tailwind team. So there seems to be an issue. Let's see, are these errors and ones for this other? Yeah, we'll have to suppress the hydration error, but you see, it seems to go away. I don't know what's happening. But yes, there seems to be an issue with, we have this block. Alright, I'm pretty sure some of you guys already caught this bug, but yes, there is a bug within the Tailwind configuration that was causing the issue, so it was not loading my style. The mistake is the screens should be inside the configuration. It should be inside extend, not outside. So that is the same way for the typography as well. It should be inside extend. So once we do that and save it, let's return back to our application. There you go. Now we have them started styling them. And the only thing that we need to do to fix this issue is just to go and then change the text. I'm not sure if we did change that in the previous tutorial, but let's go back to our layout, which is the layout of the whole application. We do have a text of white, so we need to return back to our block here and just put a text of white here. In that case, we will have the text as white instead. So let me save that and see if, because these guys that are coming as gray, there you go. So just put a text of white here and the problem will be solved. So what do you notice? For the most part, we are mostly done around styling. The only thing is here is not, the coding is not color coded. And by the way, there is a lot of plugins that comes from Remark or Rehype that we can use to actually solve most of these problems. Today, I will use one from Remark that is called Pretty Code. What it does is just going to help style our code really well. So we are going to stop our terminal from running and then just install Rehype Pretty Code. So we'll go to our terminal, stop this from running, then npm I, and then just type rehype pretty code. So this will install the, if you're using yarn add rehype pretty code, that will add the pretty code. So once we have the pretty code added, because the configuration, the content layer configuration can be extended. So if I go to content layer, I will just import, I'll import pretty code from rehype pretty code, and then I will just adjust the configuration. So it takes an MDX. If you are targeting just MD files, if you're just working with MD files that are not MDX, then there is MD that we can use. But in our case, we're using MDX, sorry, Markdown, not MD. In our case, we're using MDX, so I'll just extend the MDX. There's two type of plugins. There's Rehype and there's Rehydrate. In our case, we're using the Rehype Pretty Code, and the theme that I'm specifying is One Dark Pro. You can go to the Rehype documentation and see the themes that they supported. So this is the theme that I decided to go with. There's more. There's GitHub Light, GitHub Dark, I think. Depending on the one that you want to. So as I said, this should now update with the color coding. The application is not running. So let's run the application, reload this. Oops. What are we expecting? We expect most of those color coded stuff to be back, so that we can see that our, because if I go to the demo, here is the demo. I think here is the demo. What do you notice? You notice that these ones are pretty styled here. The coding here is also well styled. So while we wait for Next.js to complete, yeah, you can just go to rehype / rehype pretty code, go to their website and then just get get what you want from it. So as you can see, clear code, we started having it. So there's MDX create next app. That's, you see, these guys are coming. It's beginning to style. So that's beautiful. We are styling it properly. One thing that we can test is, remember we added the component for, remember we added the component, a video component that we added. So that is something that we can test. So I will go to YouTube, YouTube. I'll just search for my channel and then just get in the ID from. So I'll do TechTeach with Ebou, because I'll take in one of my videos and we'll just use it for testing. So here is the channel. Here is the video. It's an introduction. So just going to stop this, then share, embed, so that we can get the ID of the video. So here is the ID of the video. So I'll just copy the ID of the video. Then we will return back to the local file, which is the MDX file that we define here. What I will do is I'm just going to render a video right here. So this is just like rendering a React component. I will just say video, because this is the video component that I have. And within the video component, we take two things, which is the ID and then the host. So in this case, the host is YouTube. If you have a host that is not YouTube Vimeo, just specify. Oops, what happened? Oh, I just created a file here. So I just close that. And we'll close the JSX. So I don't know if the prop is called host or host type. I forgot that. Let's go back to the video component and see what the prop is. Yeah, it's called video host. So I'll close this and don't take me. So video host. Let's save this and see what do we get, if we are going to get the video loaded here or not, because it should be above the system requirements here, because that's where I have the video right here. There you go. This is beautiful. You guys notice that we now have this video here that is hosted, which is just amazing. So we can play the video inside here. We can, for example, like
it's
here,
an introduction.
I can play the video right here. Then I can go on full speed, depending on what you want. If you're writing a blog that connects your YouTube videos so you can get more people to come to your platform, this is one way to do it. So without video, you see the flexibility that we have. We do not have to write specific components for each of the markdowns that we're going to, or we are not going to have one specific type. So that's the powerful that it comes in. If you need chart, like for example, if you want to draw some charts within, we can go to one of the UI libraries that have chart, install the chart component, go back to your MDX here, go back to MDX component, and within MDX component, you can just add any other component that you want, render it anyhow you want. I think that's the beauty part of it. You can also put, like, it takes any JSX, literally, and I think there's also talk of them supporting JavaScript right inside, like running mat.random or just running any JavaScript in particular. So that makes it really beautiful. So now, for the most part, we have most of our application done. The only thing that we need to do is, this is from local files. We'll have to go with remote files as well. So we can just style this. Now that this is styled, we can just, there are more things that you can do. For example, we have the date. You can also style the date, not with H1, but let's say H2, H3, whatever that you want. We can also put this view, we can also center this view as well. So yeah, we have the blocking ready, showing all the we have ready. So we just need to do a little bit of styling. We have the local files. The next that we're going to do is just the remote files, because you don't want to check in or just update your website every time you write a new blog, or you just corrected a spelling that you have. What are we doing next is, let's go and style the blog. Right now it is not, so you see we have blocks, we just have page. This code that is inside pages, we need to move it outside. So within blocks, we need to create a new folder. This folder that we're creating, it's we're going to give it a block ID. Let me make it uppercase, block ID. So inside block ID, I'm creating page.tsx. And what this is doing is, it's if we go to blocks and navigate to any, for example, if we navigate to anything like 123, for example, if this is specific ID, then this code that is inside this parenthesis will be called. So there's single catch, there's also multiple catch. Going to React Next.js documentation to learn more about it. There's one that you can put 3 dots here, which is catch or route within blocks. You can do that. But in our case, that is not what we're doing. So we are just catching a single route from block, then we go to blocks. Inside, what are we doing here? So I'm just calling it block details. Let's just call this component block details. Oops, I don't know what I can't type today. Block details. So this block details that we already have the code that is rendered in the block, so we can just move this code here. We can just cut it out from this block, then just render it inside here. Is there anything else? Yes. So right now we can still hard code these guys, but we are going to do it dynamically. Once a user visit a page, go to the block detail, we'll have to find and check all the blocks that are related to it. Generated all page component is also coming from component slash we just have to import it. I'm too lazy to type it, so I'll just copy it here and put it right here. So we should be ready here, all good to go. So we have everything that we need. We will come back to this component for, so let me close this. We'll come back to this component and just, instead of hard coding it, taking it blocks, all posts at position 0, we'll find it depending on the ID. So we'll come back to that, but let's return to our block page. So within our block page, we now need to render the blocks. So as you can see from the demo, I have a search bar. I also have a lot of filterings that are included. So the search filtering and then a few other things, once we get on an actual backend, then that will be functioning. But search will be functioning right now since we have all the blocks, so we can search locally, filtering and a few other things. Once I connect it to the backend, then the filtering can now work. But before that, for block, I'll go to components, and inside components, I'm going to create blocks. So here I'm going to create all the components that are related to blocks. So if we go to the demo, so assuming this is just what we get from a design, I'm sorry, this is the run. So as you can see, we have a search input component. We have a filter here that we can also search as well. We can do Express.js, we'll get that. We have these cards that represent blocks. So one of the first things that we will do within this block is just to create this block card. So we'll do block card.tsx, and this block card.tsx is going to hold our code for the card that we have. So if you're new or you're not following the previous tutorial, I'm using Satien for the UI, and I already installed card, sorry. So go to Satien, go to card, it's right here, and let's just do it together. There's Satien. Within Satien, go to the card component, or you can just create, if you have another library, feel free to use it. We're not married to Satien or anything. So I'm just going to extend this. They have a card component. So why is the card? So this is the card component that I use to actually show it. So I'm not going to retype the code. It's going to waste time. So in the interest of time and to also keep the video short, I'll just put in the code. But I'll explain every single part of whatever that is happening inside here. Let me expand this a little bit more. Put the code in here. So let's go through and see what do we have here. So within the code, we have a link, and this is just the link from Next that allows us to link, so that anytime we click on one of those cards, we navigate to the other screen. Here's just a typical style of giving the card a mean height, giving it a dark class, giving it a shadow, because you can, when I was hover over it, it scales it to 105%. So that's image. Within the image, I put the width and then height. I have a card header, card description, the content, and then the footer. So if I go back to the completed demo, this is the image, I have the description, and then the card footer. So I think it is very straightforward. Don't have to go through it, and the code will also be on GitHub as well. So feel free to also grab it from GitHub if you also don't want to type it. Right. Yeah, so we have the block card ready. After the block card, there are other components that we need to have as well. So one of them is before that, there is I think we already have the search input. So this was created in the previous tutorial. If you want to see how I create the how I create this input here that you see here, because we needed the input on the landing page. So that was the reason why this was part of the previous tutorial. You can check on my channel. You can see the landing page video. We'll see why we do it. The one that is missing is the combo box. So we will do the combo box. Combo box, it's also coming from SAT-CN too. So if we go return to SAT-CN, there is this combo box right here. So in this case, it's frameworks that allows us Next, Self-Kit, Astro. So these frameworks, we have something similar. So we need to install this combo box. It's using popover, and it's also using command from SAT-CN. So what we have to do is just to go back to our terminal. Let me copy let's go to each of these ones here individually. So we need to copy this command here, MPX SAT-CN add popover. So I will stop this. So let's add popover, and after popover is done, we need to add command. So we'll go to command. Where's command here. If you are not using SAT-CN, that's okay. If you decide to style it differently, that's fine. Don't have to do it then. I'll just click yes. While it's installing the popover, we also need to install the command. Then from there, we should be good to go. Let's wait for that to complete installing. Then I'll install it. I wish we can run and add multiple. Maybe that's going to be an improvement. Actually, SAT-CN can provide. We can add multiple components. If you don't want to use, there's also a manual way of adding it as well, where you can just copy the code here and then just paste it right into your project. So in our case, it's installing popover. While we're waiting for it to install popover, I'm going to go back to my constants, because the framework that I have it in constants. But once it is connected to a backend, then we'll change that. So I have constants.tsx. Here is where I define the constants. So remember at the beginning, we quickly check this constant here. Here's where we define, like, put the ID, the name. Something else that I will define here is just the frameworks. So that is the ones that will help us to filter it. So the framework is all. If we have an article or blog that is related to Next.js, then we can filter. Basically, it's as simple as that. What else do I need to do? So I need to add the command as well. So let's come here, remove that, and add command. So I think this is the last that we need to import, that we need to install from SAT-CN. Then we should be good to go. Yes. And now we do have the component for the search input here. I will also create another component for the combo box, which just allows us to search. So basically, the code for combo box just comes right from here. I just copied it from here, whatever that they have here, and I just modify it to my need. So what do they have here? They have a command. Within the command, they have a command list. So within the command list, it allows us to search. So that's why you have these emojis, search emoji, calendar. Oh, this is not what we want. So we're going to combo box. So look at this code for combo box. We have something similar. That's no more different. So look at the code here. For them, they also have these frameworks that they define here as constants. And within here, they have a button which is just responsible for opening the popover. But since we want our popover to be used, there are other places that I used. That was the reason why I extracted it into its own component for reusability, because that is important. So yeah, very, very, very simple. They're just looping through these frameworks, mapping through them, and then rendering a command item. So in this combo box here, I will just bring in the code for the combo box, then just explain it. It's very simple, very straightforward. There's not a lot of stuff on the combo box. It basically comes directly from SAT-CN. So I'll just copy this guy just paste it here. Nothing out of the ordinary. Everything else comes from SATCN. The only thing that I added here is this, which is a way of solving where this React is complaining, Next.js is complaining, whatever that is rendered on the server is different from what is rendered on the client. So I just have it, if it is mounted, then I just return. Other than that, this is very typical of what was rendered, and then I rendered the same thing. So in my case, the data is whatever I'm passing as props. There are a few things that I pass here as props so that we can have it as customizable as possible. One of them is the input class name, the group class name, button, pop over. They're all optional. If I want to modify it, if I want to have different styling depending on who's using the component, that's the reason why I have this. I also have a placeholder here as well, which just allows us to search. I will save this. Now we seem to have the two components that we needed. So we have the card. If I go back to blocks here, we have the block card, we have the sidebar, we have the site input. So we have everything that we need to actually implement this block route here. So first thing to do within the block route is just to start importing the components that we need. So we need the card component, the block card that we just created. So let's do this. Right, so before we come here to the blocks, let's create, because this is a client component, let's just create it here. We can call it block with filters because we are supporting the filters here, so that we will just import one component into our pages, into our app directory, and then we can keep it as clean as possible. There's a lot of code here, but don't worry, I'm going to explain every single line of what is happening here. So in the interest of time, let me go through the CSS. I think the CSS is more important, and from there we'll dive deeper into the other areas. So whatever I'm doing here is I'm just putting it as flex column, flex grow, and then I give it a min height so that it have a minimum height. Remember when I was doing the demo, the footer was coming all the way up. One of the ways of solving is just give it a min height so that it have a specific min height. No matter what, that min height will be there. Site input is a typical site input. Combo box, a typical combo box. So I just rendered them and then just give a gap in between them. Just give it a gap, let it have a gap of 5 pixels in between the combo box and the site input. The next part, or the tricky part, is because we want it to be responsive as well. So that's why we have this. I'm using a grid layout. So within the grid layout, I'm using grid columns. But what I'm doing is I want to fit in the cards, the width of the card is 320 pixels. So whatever I'm telling grid that fit as many as possible of cards that have width of 320 pixels. That's what this repeat is doing. It says repeat auto fit, between auto fit and then min max. So it's going to be auto, which is what is going to allow us to even go below 320. So for example, if I have 4 cards and then the screen width is 1000, for it will fit 3 of them. If it is 2000, it will fit. But as I resize it, then they will go to the next line. So we'll have this responsiveness by default. If you are not familiar with Tailwind CSS, the equivalent of this is writing display grid columns template colon, then you put repeat. Basically most of these are going to be the same except this underscores here that you have for Tailwind CSS. Then you have that by default. Nothing out of the ordinary. I'm rendering the block card that we have here. Within the block card, I'm just putting it inside an article so that this is for SEOs and few other things. So now that we have this ready, I'm going to explain how the site is working. If you remember, for the block input, we have inside the search, we have inside the block, we have a title, we also have a description. So what am I doing here? Once a user click on search, I'm also handling the search. I'm also supporting keyboard enter as well. So it's in the search component. What is happening if I say block.title, if I search and then I have the search term, I just have an inner function here, which is checking, still nothing, it's just converting it into lowercase and using the include function, which returns a boolean to say that the text that we have, does it include? Because I use it right here, and then I'm filtering the posts based on which of them have it. So if the title have it, I'm doing this so that in case the title is optional, I'm just passing that, because most of these things could be optional. They will not be passed. So I'm just checking if the title, for example, if we have a title of let's say installation, we have one of these titles called installation. Now this installation title, if our site term is lesson, for example, it will hit, because we put it in quotes. We are not saying equals to, so that we can hit as many as possible. You can extend this as well to just highlight the hitted site term, which is a little bit much more involved, but that could be something that you can take on if you're interested in. Yeah, once we include it, this returns a boolean, and this is a typical filter function. So it just sets the filtered object. That's what this search is doing. So the set term is anytime this change, the input change, we're setting the set term onto that input. Yeah, and if the site time, if the length of the site time is 0, I'm just setting it back. Why am I doing this? Because I only have one post. That is the reason why I'm duplicating this, just to make sure that we can render some other cards here. But ideally, if you're going to production or anything, we're just going to remove all this and then just put the all post there. This is just for testing. That is why I'm spreading here, because I only have one file to test with. So I'll save this. So this block with ready, block with filters is ready. The only thing that we need to do here is just to render this block with filters here, and we should be good. So block with filters. So this will render block with filters. It is automatically imported. These guys, we don't need them. Let me clean up the import, and let's hit save. Do we have our application running on the terminal? I see, no, we do not. After I install it, I forget to add it. So now that we have this ready, let's open the browser. Within the browser, we go to it's in blocks. Yes, we reload it. So we expect things to change now, not to render one of them, but to render multiple paths. All right, so while we wait, I don't think we need to do anything else other than we need to change here, just to make sure that we are picking up the specific one that has been navigated to. But for that, let's make sure here this is running. That seems to be, it's not loading. Oh, it is. Okay, so we do have it. We do have this problem of rehydrating. I don't know if you have it, but it's related to the MDX file that we are doing. I think that was a recommendation to just use suppress hydration warning. But yeah, this is the installation that we have here. Right now we only have one, so if you have more than MDX file, feel free to search and then just test it as much as you like. If I click on any one of these, it should navigate to, so if I click here, it should navigate to the details page, which is the block details, and it renders the block. Right now, what you're seeing is just rendering, we're hard coding it, so this is not ideal, and then we need to remove the hard coding. We also need to style this as well. Let's get onto that. Let's wrap this in a div and then style that that div, so that we have this content centered. Right now it is not centered. Take this thing down and then put a class name here. We'll put the display of flex, justify center, item center. Let's give it a width of 4, so it can take up the full width. I think in this case it should now center our content in the middle here, instead of having it at the very start here. Right, so always that issue of, there you go. So our content is now centered here, right in the middle here. We'll fix the hydration issue. Like I said, this hydration issue is caused by the MDX file. So what we can do is just to suppress the hydration warning. There you go. So we now need to work on the details page, because within the details page we're just rendering. Let me minimize this. What is happening? Let me minimize that. within the details page, we are rendering every single thing within the details page. We're just rendering per component. We do not need that. Yeah, so let's dive into the details page and then just fix the issues that are there. One of the first things to do in the details is, since we are navigating to it, we are navigating to this page. Next.js already give us the params that are available via props, so it will be auto-wired. I'll just do this props. In this case, one of the first props that we have is params. And in these params, we have a block ID, which is of type string. Where is this block ID coming from? Because we have this block ID here, we name it block ID. If this was named, if you have a different name for it, then you can call for it. You can just put that specific name here. Well, that's a typo. Let's just type this. Let's use react.fc. This is like a functional component. Within this React, we will just pass in this props here. I will just close this. We don't need it for now. Within here, I can just destructure params here. So I have params here. So within these params, I will now get the ID. So one of the first things that we need to do is to get the particular params that is pass. In this case, but before that, let's go back to our content. Let's go back to our content layer. I did mention that we will return back to our content layer and then put the computed fields here. So in the computed fields, there are few more fields that we need to compute. One of them is the slot. We need to add the one for the slot so that we can get, so that when we navigate, we can use that to navigate. So I'll just come back here, below field, which is in the computed field. I will add below fields, I'll add computed fields. So some of these computed fields are coming from doc. How did I know this? I actually print this out. So I print one of them out, and then within the raw data that was printed, I was able to realize that I can get the ID from it. What am I using as ID is the file name, because if they're on the same folder, then they should have different, they cannot have the same file name. But you can expand depending on what you want. If you want, you can support multiple for, like, for example, you have docs. Inside docs, you have one section called getting started. Inside that, you can add another one called slug as params within here. But basically what I'm doing, I'm reading the raw information, I'm getting the flattened part. I'm storing that as the URL, and the slug, I'm just saying doc.raw source file .split by dot, and then I'm getting the first element because it is the name, which is local.mdx. So I'm just splitting it by dot and then getting the first element out of it. I will save that. So once I save that, now we should have the slug within the object, within the post object. What I would do is I will go back to block with block ID. So one of the first functions that we are going to have here, we're going to write a function, and this function that we are writing is going to help us to filter and then just get the specific post that we want, since here we cannot just be rendering anything that we want. So the first function that we are writing is called get post from params. So I'm just going to have it as an async function. Async function get post from params. So we are taking params as input. So these params that we are taking as input is of type block details. It's of type block details because block details can have multiple. So we're getting params from block details. Well, a cleaner solution would just be to define a type here, or in your file that you have. You can just define a type here called block params, so that we don't have to do that. So this is one way of doing it. And inside this block params is just going to have a block ID. That block ID is of type string. So once we have that, we can just return this guy here, remove it, and then just replace it with block params. So So that should be good. Now here, instead of doing that, we will just pass in the block param here directly. So now that we have the function ready, we should now be good to go now. So the first thing to do is just to get the ID, which I will call slug, which is basically it's coming from params. So it's params dot block ID. I'll have that saved. And the next thing is I just need to find that from all posts so that we will get the specific post that we are looking for. It's going to be all posts dot find, because this might or not for each dot find p, which is the post that we are taking, and then p dot slug. I think TypeScript wouldn't get this because once we initially generated it, there was no slug. So TypeScript will think that that's a bug, but we do have it. So one way of just silencing this error right now is just deleting the generated so it can generate it again, because we changed the configuration. So TypeScript is not aware that this guy changed, so it can update it. But we should be good to go. So since this find might or might not return anything, so if it doesn't find anything, we just return null. Yeah, and other than that, we return the post. That means we have the post, so we can just return post. Yeah, this can also be sorted into one line as well. We can check if it doesn't exist. Well, yeah, the next thing to do that we have this is to generate the metadata. The metadata is actually very important because it can help us with SEO and stuff. So it's a function that we can create that Next expects. So it's called generate metadata, and once we generate the metadata, it will just create the exact metadata that we need. So for example, if I post here, we are getting metadata is coming from Next. So we're getting the params, which is the block details param. In this case, if the post doesn't exist, we're not returning anything. We are returning an empty object. If it does exist, we're returning the title, so that when I visit a block, we have the title of that block. The description is also shown as well. So the last function that we need, which is also a very important function, is called generate static params. This allows Next at build time to generate these pages, so that once a user visit the pages, once a user visit any of these block pages, they were already generated by Next at build time. So yeah, like as usual, it's going to think that the slug doesn't exist. Delete your generated file, delete your dot generated, which is the content layer, which is at the root directory. I can just show you guys, and then so that you just silence this error, which is this guy, delete it. But for now, we should be good. So I will just save this. Once I save this, the next thing to do is just to call this function. But let's make this function async, because we will be calling. What did I just do? Let's make this function async. We make this function async because we will be calling another function just to get the post. In this case, I'll remove this because we no longer want that, and I'm just going to say that the function that we just made, which just finds the exact post, or it returns null. The fact that we know that this returns null, something that we can do is just to be protective, because you see TypeScript is already yelling at us. This could possibly be null, yes. So we have not found, which is coming from Next navigation. We can just import not found from Next navigation. If it's not there, then let's just do the import. It's coming from Next navigation. So this just is the 404 page that is rendered when the page that we're looking for is not found. So now that we have that not found here already, I think we should be good to go. So I'll save this. What are we doing is we're going back to, let's see if our application is running. It is indeed running. So there's a 404 correct because local.mdx doesn't exist. So there's a bug that we need to fix in the card, so which is in the block card. We are navigating .id, instead we're using the slug. So we're saying .slug, so that next time that we navigate, it's using the slug instead of using the ID. So let's go back to blocks, and if I click on any one of them to navigate, we're still hitting because this is undefined. So I think I would also need to delete whatever that is generated, so we can undo this do this guy again. So I'll just stop this error from running, clear my terminal, and generate it again. So hopefully now we should get, it should now know the type. It should also know that slug is something that exists. So did it generate any document? Oh, by the way, we need Siki. So Siki is the one that is powering the rehydrate code. So let me just stop this and then just import it. So we need to install this Siki as well. It is the library that is powering that pretty code that we installed a while ago. I think we should, once we run it again, we should be able to have it generate. If it doesn't, then let's do a small changes here so that it will, let's run the application. Hopefully it just generate it now. If it doesn't generate, let's do a little bit of change around here. Save automatic installation. Okay, we're getting a warning that we need to save in the terminal, that we need to add this generated. Yes, now it did generate the document, but we have a warning here. So let's come back and update the content layer. I did have it, I think I forgot to add it here. So yeah, put comma, and that should be good. So now it generated these guys. Content layer is generating again. So I'm just going to remove this. We navigate back to blocks. Hopefully this time around it's going to find the blocks, and once we click on it to navigate, slug will not be on the file now. In this case, it's going to have the name of the file, and that's the one that we are navigating to. There you go. So if I click on any one of them, it should now navigate to the details page, and within the details page, we should now get local. There you go. So now it gets the one that we're looking for. Because of the code that we have here, we're just doing the search. So yeah, I see TypeScript is still complaining because the slug doesn't know that we have this guy. This guy exists in the types, but this shouldn't be a problem because it's TypeScript. It's just TypeScript that is not aware that this guy has changed. But yeah, beautiful part. We have everything now. I think now that we have this part ready, we can go to our blog, and from the blog we can click and then visit any other page that we want. That is amazing. So the next part, I guess, is the part where we are now getting these files from remote instead of having them locally. So I have these files here. Let me show you the GitHub repo. So I have this GitHub repo. Within the GitHub repo, there is a folder called blogs. So you can either point directly to this repo, or you can copy these files and have it in your repository that you have for testing. So in my case, I updated this like 3 hours ago. I added this block. So I added about 4 of them here. Here's where we're reading from. So if you have copy, paste it in your repo, depending on whatever your setup is, but I will show you what you need to do. So we need to go back to our content though. In order to get from remote files, we need to go back to our ContentLayer.config and start modifying this. One of the first things to change is our source, our make source is now coming from, it's coming from content layer source file. But now that we want our source file to be removed, so we need to remove the content layer from there and import it from a completely different place. That is, instead of importing make source here, we're importing make source from content layers that's remote files, because the files that we'll be using now are coming from remote, in this case from GitHub. There are other places that they support, and I think they're working with Notion and then a few other places that they're also supporting as well. There are 2 functions here that I will just bring right in, but these 2 functions, I'll explain them and whatever that is happening in these 2 functions. It comes directly from the documentation. I'm not taking credit. I did not write any of these functions. It comes directly from their documentation. So from the content layer documentation. So what they're doing here is, and I think it's pretty smart, they're just running a git command. They're initializing a new, because content layer is included at build time. So when you have this command that is running, so they're basically running it within the command of your Next.js build that is serving your application. So you can specify a time on how often you want it to load from the server. Like how often do you want it to ask for update? The beautiful part is they are just the clone that they're doing is, even though no matter how big your repo is, they're fetching with depth 1. So they're not going inside to check, like they're not going to get all the histories, they're just getting at the first level, which is going to make the cloning very fast, and you're going to have less data that is being sent to you. That is what they're doing here. So this sync file from GitHub, they are running something called run bash script. That function, that run bash script, it's here. It's basically running a bash script where it is executing the code that we have here, which is just basically doing git fetch. Once you get the fetch, find the directory, echo the directory, put it somewhere else. In my case, I define a variable here called block directory at top level. So this block directory, this is where the block of my files are located, right? On my remote repository, it is called blocks. So you can also change this constants to anything that you want. If it is located in docs, if it is located in post, just come here and update it so that because we're using it here, we're using the echo here, echo everything that is within here, and then we're using this wildcard match. So whatever that they're doing here is, if the content directory.git already exists, we know that we cloned this before. So the next time that we are going in, we're only asking for update. We are not recloning everything. We're just doing a quiet fetch from GitHub. Otherwise, we initialize a new repository, add it, do all the good stuff. Yeah, I think that is it for the main part. Here they're just using std out for the data, writing it to the console and so on. Something else that we need to do, the code that we've just written, instead of now returning an object here, let's return a function which just returns this object. So let's do this and return a function. Now this function returns our object. So in this case, we're taking a source key so that you can specify where you want this to be fetching. In my case, it is going to be fetching from main. That's why I specify main. If you have another branch, maybe let that branch that you call blocks, for example, if you can have a block branch that is very lightweight, that doesn't have a lot of code. If your repository is very big, like or if you're in a mono repo or whatever, just have a source file, and here you can just tell git command where to go, which branch to go. In my case, it's main, so that's very okay. Next one is sync files, which is a very important function. Now, the sync file is what is running the, you see, we have this method at the very top, which is just cloning from GitHub, getting all the good stuff from GitHub. What else? Now the content directory needs to change. In our case, it's like our content directory depends on where we're saving the information. In our case, we need to change these two things. So there's another one called include that we do not have here. So we will just include, we'll change the content directory part. Let me just move this here. So this is just the one that I specified. That tells that if you clone the repo, only include the files that are in this directory. In my case, it's the one that I specify here, blocks. If I go to my GitHub, it is in blocks. If I have a different name, you specify it there. So telling ContentLayer that I'm only interested in this file. So here I can just call it like blocks, for example. So it means once I clone it, it's going to that. So I'll just have this as block for now, and then we can edit later. And I think for the most part, we should be good. I don't think we're missing anything else. So once I save this, it will now get the information from, so spawn is not defined, correct. So it's a Node.js, it's coming from Node.js child process. So I just need to add one more import here, which is the spawn, which is spawning the terminal. And then I'll hit on save. So let's see, it's the first one took 1.8 seconds. You can see it generated 4 documents. Because why does it generate 4 documents? If I go inside block here, you see I have 4 different documents here. So if I did go back to my application, I expect to have 4 of them. This is very right because we no longer have anything called local. So we get a 404. You can see these are the ones that are coming from, and you can see I'm just duplicating it. So maybe this is a way of us just testing, just to make sure that we have the right, we have a lot of them, and then the grid style that we applied is now working, is resizing these guys correctly. So yeah, we have these ones, right? As you can see, they're coming directly from GitHub. Nothing is stored locally. So if you deploy your application, go to GitHub, make changes, boom, work. So this is test 4. I have this auto name, whatever. I did not have a description, but I can also include a description. So if you go back, where is you? Here. Instead of H1, this could be H2. I can have H2 can be auto the description, and I can have the auto, the date. Just you just have anything that you want, so you can just do whatever that you want. So if I hit on save, notice that, let me minimize this guy again. Notice that we have the description, and then the title is here, text 4. The author is still Ebou. So let's go back to the code. Oh, I think I minimized this in the wrong place. So we need to go back to the code. We need to go back to GitHub. Within GitHub, we change a file. And what is the expectation is once we change it, I don't know if I did walk through with you guys, but it's set currently to 1 minute. That makes us that every 1 minute it asks. So here is where we are asking for the information again to see if it is up to date. You can do this as per your need. If you need it to happen every right here, we're syncing every 1 minute. I'm going to put this inside a constant, define the constant at the very top here, call it const sync interval, in this case I'll just paste it. So this is just 1 minute. I'm just saying 1000 times 60. It's just going to give it to, so that it's going to sync every 1 minute. If I wanted to sync every 2 minutes, I'll just multiply this by 2. If I wanted to sync every 3 minutes, I'll multiply it by 3, and so on. Now we have our sync interval here. I'll just come down here, update, I'll put the variable for our sync interval, and then we should be good. So what is happening? I'm currently checking for, what am I going to do? I'm going to go to GitHub. So this is just simulating me checking in a code. I'll click on the for, edit it right here. So oh, okay, so I need to log in with my account. I'm not sure if I'm logged in here. Yes, I'm not logged in. So I'm gonna bring in a window that I'm already logged in, and then we can do the modification from there. So I'll bring in this window here that I am already logged in. I drag it in. I'm just going to minimize this. So since I am already logged in, let's edit this file and change the author to YouTube viewers. YouTube viewers is the, I change it. I will also change the title to change me. Let's commit these files to the main directory. So once we have these files that are committed to the main directory, I'll just move here. And if we are here, we expect this after, because the syncing is happening every 1 minute, we expect the title to change. We also expect the author to also change as well. So let's see what is happening. So is it generating? It has generated 4 documents again. So let me reload this file here. I should see the changes, but not yet. So the changes are not yet synced. Maybe it's not yet a minute. Hopefully it will wait for another minute, then it will sync. Okay, I think we already synced. There you go. So now that we synced, you see it has already changed. So you see this has changed to change me, and the author name has changed to YouTube. I think that's it all for I think for the main part, that is it. The code will be open source, and Yeah, there's in part of there's more series that I'm doing. So I'm building the entire application. I have some other, so I can just do the entire demo of whatever that I'm building here. If you're interested, please check out my YouTube channel. So I have courses route here where I just render the courses that if you're selling a course, if I click on any of those courses, we will go to the courses details. So within the courses details, what is happening there is we're rendering the course. We're also showing the video right now because I need to log into my Vimeo. But yeah, because other than that, you can see here is like the courses where you can expand the content and see whatever that is offered. There's also another route called Learn that allows you to also learn once you are enrolled in the course. This button will change from to learn. So as you can see, this is just amazing. If you minimize it, if you click on any one of these, the video will now play here. There's also a contact form that you can, there's also like the landing page, but landing page I already have the video up. The other series, the implementation is already done, so the videos will be up very soon. The other beautiful part is there's going to be backend that I'm going to build for it, and the backend will be built in multiple frameworks. I'm going to do it in Express, Prisma, Spring Boot, and you name it. So if you're new here, one of the ways of showing support is please subscribe to my channel, like this video. For the YouTube algorithm, I only have 100 subscribers, and I think one way of you supporting my channel is please subscribe.